Have you ever imagined how one single mind could challenge the entire belief system of the world? How one man, armed with nothing more than curiosity, mathematics, and a homemade telescope, could shake the foundations of science, religion, and philosophy? Today, you and I will take a journey into the life of Galileo Galilei, a man who looked at the night sky and dared to say, "The truth is bigger than tradition." In this inspiring biography told in simple Level 3 English, you will learn English through biography while understanding how Galileo's discoveries, courage, and conflict changed our world forever. So stay with me, because the full story of Galileo is more than history. It is a lesson in bravery, curiosity, and the power of truth. In this video, we explore the extraordinary life of Galileo Galilei, the man who opened a new door to scientific thinking. As you listen and read, you will naturally improve your English with clear explanations and simple storytelling. Let's begin our journey. Chapter 1. Early Life, a Child of Florence. Galileo Galilei was born on February 15, 1564, in Pisa, Italy. At that time, Italy was not a single country, but a group of independent states filled with culture, art, and learning. The Renaissance was blooming, and people were becoming more curious about the world. Galileo's father, Vincenzo Galilei, was not only a skilled musician, but also a researcher who questioned old musical theories. His mother, Giulia Ammannati, was known for her strong personality. From his parents, Galileo inherited two powerful qualities: curiosity and discipline. When Galileo was about 10 years old, his family moved to Florence, the heart of Renaissance culture. Florence was a city alive with ideas. Artists were painting masterpieces. Architects were designing beautiful buildings. Scholars were debating philosophy, science, and mathematics. Growing up in this environment shaped Galileo's young mind. He was always asking questions. Why do objects fall? Why do planets move? What lies beyond the stars? His mind was never still. He loved learning, observing, and experimenting. Even as a child, Galileo showed signs of becoming a great thinker. Chapter 2. Galileo the Student, the Search for Purpose. At the age of 17, Galileo enrolled at the University of Pisa. His father wanted him to study medicine, hoping Galileo would become a respected and well-paid doctor, but something inside Galileo resisted this plan. Instead of listening to lectures about the human body, he found himself more fascinated by mathematics, philosophy, and the principles of nature. The turning point came during a simple moment inside the Cathedral of Pisa. Galileo watched a lamp swinging back and forth. The movement was small, then big, then small again. Yet the time between each swing seemed almost equal. This observation sparked his interest in the motion of objects. This single moment later contributed to the idea behind the pendulum, a key discovery for measuring time. However, Galileo faced challenges at the university. Many professors believed deeply in the writings of Aristotle, the ancient Greek philosopher. Aristotle's ideas had been accepted for centuries, and questioning them was seen as rebellious or disrespectful. But Galileo was not afraid to think differently. He believed the truth should come from experiments and evidence, not from old books alone. Slowly, Galileo convinced his father to allow him to change his focus from medicine to mathematics, a decision that shaped the future of science. Chapter 3. The Young Scholar, Teaching and Exploration. Eventually, Galileo left the University of Pisa before finishing his degree because his family could not afford the tuition. But he did not give up. Instead, he began offering private lessons. His talent soon became widely recognized, and he gained a reputation as a brilliant mathematician. In 1589, he received an appointment as a mathematics professor at the University of Pisa. This was the beginning of Galileo's public scientific journey.
Here, Galileo started performing experiments that challenged traditional beliefs. One of the stories, whether fully true or partly legendary, tells how Galileo climbed the Leaning Tower of Pisa and dropped two objects of different weights. According to the story, both objects landed at the same time. This simple demonstration questioned Aristotle's claim that heavier objects fall faster. Galileo was not only thinking scientifically, he was performing experiments, observing results, and proving ideas through action. This approach, using observation, experimentation, and analysis, would later become known as the scientific method, the backbone of all modern science. Chapter 4: New Beginnings in Padua. In 1592, Galileo moved to the University of Padua in northern Italy. This was one of the most productive and joyful periods of his life. Here, he taught geometry, astronomy, mechanics, and engineering. Padua gave Galileo an environment where he felt free to explore ideas, design instruments, and conduct experiments without constant criticism. However, his greatest discovery, the one that would forever change his life, was still waiting for him. Chapter 5: The Telescope That Opened the Universe, Beginning. In 1609, news reached Italy about a curious invention from the Netherlands. It was a simple spyglass that could make faraway objects appear closer. Galileo immediately realized the potential of this device. He did not simply copy it, he improved it. With better lenses and careful design, he built a telescope that could magnify objects much clearer. And then, for the first time in human history, Galileo pointed the telescope toward the sky. Chapter 5: The Telescope That Opened the Universe, Continuation. When Galileo looked through his improved telescope, he entered a world no human eye had ever seen before. The night sky, which seemed calm and perfect to ordinary viewers, suddenly became alive with secrets. Stars multiplied before his eyes. The moon transformed from a smooth white circle into a rugged, mountain-filled world. Then came the discovery that changed astronomy forever. 1. The moon was not perfect. For centuries, people believed the moon was a perfect sphere, shining with heavenly purity. But Galileo saw craters, valleys, and towering mountains. Light and shadow played across its surface just like they did on Earth. This discovery challenged the belief that heavenly bodies were flawless and unchanging. Galileo showed that the universe was more complex and more beautiful than old traditions claimed. 2. 4 moons orbiting Jupiter. In January 1610, Galileo noticed small bright dots near Jupiter. At first, he thought they were stars, but after several nights of careful observation, he realized something astonishing. These stars were moving around Jupiter, not around Earth. He had discovered the 4 largest moons of Jupiter, now known as Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. This was powerful evidence that not everything in the sky revolved around Earth. 3. Many new stars. Galileo pointed his telescope toward the Milky Way. To the naked eye, it looked like a cloudy band, but through the telescope, it exploded into countless stars too small to see without magnification. This suggested that the universe was far bigger and more mysterious than people had imagined. 4. The phases of Venus. Perhaps the most important discovery was the phases of Venus. Galileo observed Venus changing shapes, crescent, half, full, just like the moon. These phases were impossible to explain in the Earth-centered model. But in the Sun-centered system, where Venus orbits the Sun, the phases made perfect sense. Galileo had found undeniable evidence that the planets move around the Sun. Chapter 6: Fame, Praise, and Danger. Galileo published his observations in 1610 in a small but groundbreaking book called Starry Messenger, Sidereus Nuncius. The book spread across Europe like lightning. Scholars, scientists, princes, and even enemies wanted to read it. Galileo became an international celebrity. He received invitations, gifts, and recognition. Most importantly, he received support from the influential Medici family, who became his patrons. He even named Jupiter's moons after the Medici princes, a smart move that strengthened his position. But success came with danger. The more Galileo proved, the more he challenged the traditional beliefs supported by powerful religious authorities. At that time, the Catholic Church strongly supported the geocentric model, the belief that Earth was the center of the universe. This belief wasn't just scientific, it was deeply connected to religious interpretation.
Chapter 10. The Trial of Galileo, a Battle Against Power. In 1633, Galileo, now almost 70 years old, weak and suffering from health problems, was summoned to Rome by the Roman Inquisition, the powerful institution responsible for guarding religious doctrine. The journey was long, uncomfortable, and emotionally exhausting for an elderly man. When Galileo arrived in Rome, he was placed under strict supervision. His enemies were ready. Scholars who once argued with him and church officials who felt insulted by his ideas saw this as their chance to silence him permanently. The charges. Galileo was accused of disobeying the Church's 1616 warning, teaching the heliocentric model, publishing a book that mocked traditional beliefs, spreading dangerous scientific ideas. Galileo stood before a panel of judges who were not scientists. They cared less about evidence and more about authority. To them, Galileo's discoveries threatened the foundation of religious interpretation. The interrogations. Galileo tried to defend himself. He argued that his book was written as a discussion, not a conclusion. He did not openly claim the heliocentric model was absolutely true. He wrote with respect toward the Church. But his arguments were ignored. His book was seen as dangerous. His discoveries were seen as rebellion. At one point, Galileo was even threatened with torture if he did not recant, meaning he had to deny the sun-centered model publicly. For an old, fragile man, the threat was terrifying. The forced confession. Finally, under immense pressure, Galileo bowed his head and recited the forced confession prepared for him. He declared that he no longer supported the heliocentric model. The moment was heartbreaking. A man who had dedicated his entire life to truth was forced to deny what he knew was fact. The legend, and yet it moves. According to legend, after signing the confession, Galileo whispered, "Eppur si muove," and yet it moves. Whether this actually happened remains uncertain, but the phrase symbolizes Galileo's courage and belief in truth over fear. Chapter 11. House Arrest, a Prison of Silence. After the trial, Galileo was not locked in a dungeon. Instead, he was sentenced to house arrest for the rest of his life. But make no mistake, house arrest was still a prison. He could not travel. He could not teach freely. He could not publish any work related to the sun-centered system. Even visits from friends and students were carefully controlled. Life in confinement. Galileo spent the first months of house arrest at the palace of Archbishop Piccolomini, where he was watched day and night. Later, he was allowed to return to his villa in Arcetri near Florence, but his freedom remained extremely limited. Yet Galileo refused to be defeated. Even while confined, he continued to write, think, and explore scientific ideas. The world outside might have tried to silence him, but inside his mind, the universe remained alive. Family tragedies. During these years, Galileo also faced deep personal sorrow.
His beloved daughter, Sister Maria Celeste, who lived in a nearby convent, died in 1934. Her letters to Galileo, full of love and gentle support, were his emotional anchor. Her death left him devastated. Chapter 12, the final masterpiece, Two New Sciences. Despite all obstacles, Galileo produced one of the most important scientific books in history during his house arrest, Two New Sciences, 1638. This work did not focus on astronomy. Instead, it explored motion, acceleration, falling bodies, the strength of materials, and the mathematics behind physical laws. It became the foundation of modern physics and strongly influenced the mind of a young Isaac Newton. Galileo's growing blindness. As he worked on the book, Galileo's vision began to fail. Years of studying the night sky, long hours writing, and old age damaged his eyesight. By 1638, he became completely blind. But blindness could not stop his mind. Students and assistants read to him, wrote for him, and helped him record his ideas. Even in darkness, Galileo continued exploring the light of knowledge. Chapter 13. A quiet end to a loud life. Galileo spent his final years in quiet reflection. He received occasional visitors, students, scholars, and even foreign ambassadors who respected his brilliance. Though he could no longer see, he enjoyed discussions about science, philosophy, and the nature of truth. On January 8, 1642, Galileo Galilei passed away at the age of 77. Remarkably, in the same year, Isaac Newton was born, a powerful symbol of how one great scientific mind was passing the torch to another. Chapter 14. Galileo's Legacy, the man who refused to stop thinking. Today, Galileo is remembered as the father of modern science, a pioneer of the scientific method, a defender of truth against authority, one of the world's greatest astronomers, a symbol of courage and curiosity. His discoveries laid the foundations for modern physics, modern astronomy, the use of mathematics in science, and the idea that evidence is more important than tradition. Galileo taught the world that knowledge grows when we dare to question. He showed that truth does not depend on who speaks it, but on the proof that supports it. He proved that even a single voice, armed with curiosity and courage, can change the universe. Chapter 15. Conclusion. A lesson for every generation. Galileo Galilei's story is not just a biography, it is a roadmap for thinkers, dreamers, and learners. His life teaches us several powerful lessons. 1. Curiosity leads to discovery. Galileo questioned everything. He refused to accept ideas simply because they were old. Instead, he looked for evidence, tested theories, and trusted observation. His curiosity opened the door to discoveries that changed the world. 2. Courage is necessary for truth. Standing against powerful institutions is never easy. Galileo faced criticism, jealousy, threats, and punishment, yet he continued to explore, to ask questions, and to speak what he believed was scientifically true. His courage paved the way for future generations of scientists. 3. Knowledge cannot be imprisoned. Even under house arrest, with failing health and total blindness, Galileo continued to produce groundbreaking work. His body was confined, but his mind traveled across the world and across centuries. No wall, no restriction, no punishment could stop his mind from moving forward. 4. The universe is bigger than we imagine. Galileo's telescope revealed mountains on the moon, moons around Jupiter, and countless stars hidden from naked eyes. He taught humanity that the universe is vast, mysterious, and constantly expanding. just like our understanding. Final message to the viewers. Thank you for staying with me through the full story of Galileo Galilei. This incredible journey showed us that knowledge grows when we explore, imagine, and question. Galileo's courage reminds us never to stop learning, no matter the challenges. If this video helped you improve your English and inspired you to learn more through stories, then I invite you to stay connected.